Errol Flynn was one of the most famous actors of his time. Everyone knew him for his exciting roles in adventure movies. He was handsome, charming, and seemed to live a life full of excitement and fun. But there was more to his story than just the movies and the fame. Many people did not know about the secret side of his life. There were rumors and whispers about his close friendships with some of the gay stars in classic Hollywood. At a time when being different was not accepted, these relationships were kept very private. The question is, why did Errol Flynn have to keep these friendships a secret? What was happening behind the bright lights of Hollywood that the public never saw? Hollywood in the 1930s and 1940s was a place full of rules and secrets. Being openly gay was dangerous for actors because it could ruin their careers. People in the industry were afraid of being judged or losing their jobs. This is why many stars lived double lives. They showed one face to the public but hid their true selves from everyone else. Errol Flynn was part of this secret world. He had friendships and perhaps more with some of these stars, but no one talked about it openly. The fear of scandal was very real. Even the closest friends had to be careful about what they said or did. What makes this story even more interesting is that Errol Flynn was not just friends with these stars. Some believe his relationships were very close and personal. He was a man who enjoyed life, but he also understood the dangers of being different in Hollywood. So how did he manage to keep these relationships secret? How did he balance his public image as a heroic and adventurous star with the private life that few knew about? The answer lies in the way Hollywood worked back then. People had to protect themselves, and many stars made sure to keep their private lives hidden behind closed doors. There were times when rumors about Flynn's private life spread, but he was clever in handling them. He knew that a scandal could destroy everything he had built. Many people wondered if his charm was only for the public or if there was more to his personality. His friendships with the gay stars were complicated because the world was not ready to accept them. This created tension and mystery around his life. People wanted to know the truth, but the truth was buried deep beneath Hollywood's shiny surface. Errol Flynn's life was already filled with drama. He was known for wild parties and legal problems. But the secret affairs added another layer to the story. These relationships may have affected his personal life and reputation more than people realized. He lived in a time when being different could be dangerous, but he still found ways to be close to the people he cared about. This part of his life shows a man who was more than just a movie star. He was a person with complex feelings and a need for connection. Today, many news stories and information have come out about Flynn and his relationships with the gay stars of classic Hollywood. This helps us see him in a new light. Instead of only remembering him as the daring actor from adventure movies, we can understand the challenges he faced in his private life. This story reminds us that behind the fame and glamour there are always real people with real struggles. Errol Flynn's confidential affairs show us the hidden world of Hollywood and the courage it took to live an honest life when honesty was not always safe. Errol Flynn lived in a time when Hollywood was like a big bright stage where everyone wanted to look perfect. But behind the glitz and glamour there were many rules about what people could say or do, especially when it came to their private lives. One of the biggest secrets was about sexual orientation. If someone was known to be gay, it could mean the end of their career. The fear of being judged or losing fans was very real. Because of this, many actors and stars had to hide their true selves from the world. This was not just a personal choice but a way to survive in the harsh world of Hollywood. Errol Flynn's story becomes more interesting when we look at the people he was close to. Many of these friends were gay stars who had to keep their identity hidden. It was a dangerous secret to keep because if anyone found out, the person's reputation and job were at risk. This was a time when the studios controlled almost everything about their stars, including who they could be friends with or date. Flynn was part of this world where people had to be very careful. The question is, why did he choose to be close to these stars? What was it about these friendships that made him take such a risk? The answer is that Flynn was different from many others. He seemed to accept people for who they were and valued friendship and loyalty. In a world full of lies and fake smiles, he found comfort in these secret relationships. He understood the fear and pain of hiding a part of yourself. So he kept these friendships close and private. But because of the risks, no one talked openly about these relationships. It was a silent agreement to protect each other. The fear of scandal was everywhere. Hollywood was full of gossip and one wrong word could ruin a career overnight. Flynn knew this well. People whispered about his private life, but nothing was ever proven. He was careful not to give anyone a reason to attack him. At the same time, he did not cut off his friends or deny who they were. This balance between protecting himself and staying loyal to his friends made his life complicated. It was a constant game of hiding and revealing just enough. This secret life created a lot of tension for Flynn. He had to live in a world where he could not be completely honest. He was famous for his wild personality and many romances, but the truth about his confidential affairs with gay stars was kept hidden. This made his story full of mystery. People wanted to know the real Flynn behind the roles and the charm. What made him connect so deeply with these hidden stars? The curiosity about his life grows when we realize how much he risked to maintain these relationships. Hollywood at that time was not just about making movies, it was about controlling images. Studios decided what the public could see and what had to stay secret. This control was strict, and breaking the rules could mean losing everything. Flynn's friendships with gay stars were part of this secret world. They shared a bond that went beyond the public eye. This hidden community supported each other in a world that was not ready to accept them. Understanding this helps us see Flynn as a man who cared deeply and took risks to protect those he loved. The story of Errol Flynn and his relationships with gay stars is important because it shows us how different Hollywood was behind the scenes. It was not just a place of fame and money, but also a place of fear and secrets. Flynn's life reminds us that even the brightest stars have shadows. The friendships he kept private tell a story of courage and loyalty in a time when being honest was not easy. This part of his life helps us understand the struggles many people faced in a world that demanded they hide who they really were. Errol Flynn's life was full of excitement and adventure on the screen, but off the screen his relationships were even more complicated. Many of the stars in classic Hollywood had to live double lives because society was not ready to accept who they truly were. Flynn's confidential affairs with some of these gay stars were much deeper than just friendship. This part of his life shows a hidden side of Hollywood full of secrets and silent understandings. People, at that time, had to be very careful about their private lives. If a star was caught in a scandal, it could end their career forever. Because of this, actors and actresses often hid their true feelings and relationships. Errol Flynn was no different. His relationships with certain stars were kept secret, but they were important and personal. These men shared a bond that was not easy to show to the world. Flynn's life was not just about acting and fame, it was also about protecting the people he cared about. What makes this story so interesting is the mystery around who these men were. Hollywood was full of famous stars, but some were forced to hide their identities and live quietly. Flynn's affairs with these stars created a secret network of trust. They understood each other's struggles and fears. This secret world was filled with late-night talks, shared laughter, and support. It was a place where they could be themselves, even if only for a short time. The curiosity grows when we ask who these men were and what their lives were like behind closed doors. Errol Flynn's confidential affairs were complicated because the world around him was full of judgment and danger. He had to keep these relationships hidden to protect not only himself but also the men he cared about. The pressure to maintain a perfect public image was huge. At the same time, these private moments were very real and meaningful to him. The contrast between his public life and private life makes his story full of suspense. How did he manage to keep these secrets for so long? What did these relationships mean to him personally? Flynn's life was already filled with challenges. He was known for his bold personality and many adventures, but his secret relationships added another layer to his story. These affairs were a part of who he was, but the world was not ready to understand them. This created a sense of loneliness and isolation for many stars like him. They had to hide their true selves from the people they worked with and the fans who admired them. Flynn's confidential affairs remind us that behind the fame there were real people with real feelings and struggles. This hidden side of Hollywood helps us understand a different story from the one we usually hear. It is not just about glamour and success, but also about fear, secrecy, and the desire to belong. Flynn's relationships with gay stars were a part of this secret world. They supported each other in a time when being open could mean disaster. This makes us curious about the courage it took to live like this and the strength of the friendships they shared. It also makes us wonder how many other secrets Hollywood still hides. Errol Flynn's life teaches us about the cost of fame and the price many stars paid to keep their true selves hidden. His confidential affairs with gay stars show us a side of Hollywood that was full of hidden love and secret pain. This story helps us see Flynn not just as a daring actor but as a man who lived with complexity and courage. It makes us think about how much people had to sacrifice to be part of the world they loved. The curiosity about his life and friendships will always remain, inviting us to look deeper beyond the surface. Errol Flynn's life was always full of excitement, but with excitement came suspicion and gossip. People loved to talk about the stars, and Flynn was no exception. His name often appeared in rumors about secret romances and hidden affairs. The world of Hollywood was full of whispers, and sometimes it felt like everyone was watching, waiting for a mistake. But why did people want to dig into his private life so much? What made his relationship so interesting and secretive? The curiosity about Flynn's private world grew because there was always more to the story than what met the eye. Flynn was very careful about what he showed the public. He knew that a single scandal could destroy his career. The studios controlled how stars looked and behaved, and any hint of something different was a big risk. Flynn's rumored relationships with gay stars were especially dangerous topics. He had to be careful not to give anyone a reason to accuse him or his friends. This was a time when being linked to anything outside the norm could end your fame and income. So Flynn learned to live with secrets and silence, always watching his steps. Despite the pressure, Flynn didn't completely distance himself from the people he cared about. He kept his friendships close but hidden. These relationships were important to him, and he valued loyalty and trust. The tension between protecting his public image and staying true to his private life made things complicated. How do you keep something so important a secret when so many people are watching? This question added to the mystery of his life. The answers were locked away in private moments that only a few people ever saw. Flynn's life was also full of challenges beyond his secret relationships. He was known for wild parties and often found himself in trouble with the law. These public scandals sometimes distracted people from the truth about his private world. But his confidential affairs with gay stars were a different kind of secret. They were hidden deeper than the tabloids could reach. This made his story even more mysterious. The public saw the bold actor, but behind the scenes was a man living with many layers of secrets and fears. The risk Flynn took in keeping these affairs secret shows how difficult it was to live openly in Hollywood's golden age. The pressure to conform was enormous. Many stars chose to hide their true selves to survive. Flynn's confidential relationships remind us that there was a hidden community of support and love, even if it had to stay in the shadows. These relationships helped him deal with the loneliness and challenges of fame. It also shows how brave he was to keep these bonds alive despite the dangers. The curiosity about Flynn's life and his secret affairs still remains today. New stories and information continue to come out, helping us see a fuller picture of who he was. He was not just a daring actor but also a man who lived with complex emotions and a need for connection. His confidential affairs with gay stars of classic Hollywood add a new layer to the history of that era. This story teaches us about the hidden struggles behind the glamorous world of old Hollywood and the courage it took to live an honest life in a time when honesty was risky. Errol Flynn's life was full of energy and excitement, but it was also filled with many challenges. He was known for his wild parties, his bold personality, and sometimes even trouble with the law. People loved to watch his movies and hear stories about his daring adventures, but few knew the full story behind the scenes. What many didn't see was the complicated private life he led. His secret relationships with gay stars added another layer to the mystery of who he really was. These confidential affairs were not easy to live with, especially in a time when being open could ruin everything. Flynn lived in a world where image was everything. The public saw him as a hero on screen, but off-screen he had to be careful about how he showed himself. The Hollywood studios controlled almost everything about their stars. They wanted them to look perfect and act the right way. If a star's personal life was different from what the public expected, it could mean losing fans and money. Flynn had to hide parts of his life, especially his close friendships and affairs with gay stars. These relationships were kept secret to protect everyone involved. This created a lot of pressure on him. Living with these secrets was not easy. Flynn had to balance his public life full of parties and fun with a private life that was full of fear and hiding. His confidential affairs were very important to him, but he knew that if they were exposed, it could destroy his career. The risk of being found out was always there, and it made his life complicated. He was living two lives at the same time, one for the public and one for himself and the people he cared about. This created a lot of tension and sadness. How do you live like that without breaking down? Flynn's private relationships were more than just friendships. They were bonds of trust and loyalty that helped him through difficult times. These men understood each other's struggles and fears. In a world that did not accept them, they found comfort in each other. Flynn's secret affairs show a man who was not just a movie star but someone who needed love and connection like everyone else. The curiosity about these relationships grows when we think about what they meant to him personally. What kind of support did he get from these friends? How did these relationships help him survive Hollywood's harsh world? Despite the challenges, Flynn kept these relationships alive. It took courage to live with such secrecy and still stay close to the people he cared about. He was surrounded by a world full of gossip and rumors, but he remained loyal. His secret affairs were part of a hidden community that supported each other. This hidden support was a source of strength for Flynn. It helped him deal with the loneliness that came with fame and the pressure to keep his true self hidden. The story of these confidential affairs adds a new layer of understanding to his life and the life of Hollywood at that time. Flynn's story teaches us about the cost of fame and the price many stars paid to protect their private lives. It reminds us that behind the bright lights and the fun, there were real struggles and sacrifices. His confidential affairs with gay stars of classic Hollywood help us see a different side of the man we thought we knew. It makes us think about the courage it took to live honestly in a world that demanded silence. This part of his life encourages us to look beyond the surface and understand the hidden stories of old Hollywood. Errol Flynn was a man who lived many lives at once. On the surface, he was the adventurous hero of classic Hollywood, but underneath his story was far more complex. Over time, more and more details about his private life have come to light. These revelations give us a deeper understanding of the world he lived in and the challenges he faced. Flynn's secret relationships with gay stars of Hollywood were part of a hidden story, one that shows a different side of the golden age of movies. This story makes us curious about how much more is still hidden behind the glamorous curtain. The world Flynn lived in was not an easy one for those who didn't fit the expected mold. Hollywood demanded perfection, and anything different was pushed into the shadows. The stars were like pieces on a chessboard, carefully moved and controlled by powerful studios. Flynn's confidential affairs remind us of a secret community that supported each other quietly and carefully. These were friendships and relationships filled with loyalty and trust, even when the world outside was full of judgment and danger. Understanding this helps us see Flynn as more than just a famous actor, but as someone who took risks to live honestly with those he cared about. In recent years, historians and writers have begun to uncover more about Flynn and the other stars who lived secret lives. This new information changes how we see Hollywood's past. Instead of just stories of fame and fortune, we find stories of courage, friendship, and sometimes heartbreak. Flynn's story is a reminder that behind the bright lights, there were people who had to hide their true selves to survive. This makes us ask important questions. How many other stars had to live like this? How much of Hollywood's history remains untold because of fear and silence? The courage it took for Flynn and others to keep these secret relationships alive cannot be underestimated. They lived in constant fear of discovery, but they also found strength in their hidden community. Flynn's confidential affairs with gay stars were a form of rebellion against the strict rules of the time. It was a way of saying, even if only in private, that they deserved to love and be loved without shame. This hidden defiance adds a powerful and emotional layer to Flynn's life story. It makes us appreciate the risks he took to live truthfully in a world that demanded lies. As we look back on Flynn's life and the lives of those around him, we see a Hollywood that was more complicated than the fairy tales told on screen. Flynn's confidential affairs with gay stars show us a side of history that is often left out. This story helps us understand the pain and courage of people who had to hide who they were. It reminds us that fame and fortune do not always bring happiness or freedom. Flynn's story is a lesson about the importance of acceptance and the human need for connection and honesty. The mystery around Flynn and his private relationships will likely continue to interest people for many years. Each new piece of information helps us understand the man behind the movies better. It also encourages us to think about how much society has changed and how much more needs to be done to accept people for who they are. Flynn's confidential affairs with gay stars of classic Hollywood are not just stories of the past, they are reminders of courage, love, and the struggle for truth. This makes his life story one of the most fascinating and important in the history of Hollywood.